Georgia did look impressive. In fact, I think they look beyond impressive. And the caveat here is it wasn't Carson Beck. He looked as bad as advertised because I've been saying he wasn't that good. I didn't think he was that good. I thought he turned it around when they played against Alabama in the second half, at least. He's not a very good quarterback. 8 touchdowns, 8 interceptions now in the last 4 games. If this game here, 175 yards passing, 3 interceptions, nothing close to a touchdown. This game was won by the defense and the offensive line, and not the offensive line having to protect him because he would have skipped the ball anyway. It wouldn't have mattered. It was Trevor Etienne running crazy like he was running, effectively as he was running because of that offensive line.
If anything, Carson Beck was the Longhorns' best friend Saturday.
Oh, was he? Yes.
His turnovers kept them in the game. It made them think they had hope to come back. And for a while, they had momentum, and you're thinking, uh-oh. But that defense stepped up. And as you mentioned, Etienne was running wild. They had no answer for him.
Yeah, I saw him at Florida. Obviously, he played at Florida last year, and now he's with the rival, which is Georgia. You know, the Georgia-Florida rivalry is coming up not this weekend, but the following weekend, the world's largest cocktail party. But his running ability has always been impressive to me. And then, like his brother in the NFL, Travis Etienne for the Jaguars, he catches out of the backfield well, too. And he can stay in and block. Now, the statistics say he's over 200 pounds. He doesn't look like it in person, but apparently he plays like it. He runs between the tackles, he runs hard, and he gets to the outside because he has the feet to get out there. But what they were doing in terms of what Georgia was doing defensively, they were sure tacklers last Saturday. I think that made just as big a difference as anything else, being as sure tacklers as they were. Not too many players were getting away from them after that first guy got there. Either the first guy made the tackle or they got game tackled because the first guy was holding on. And Texas never really adjusted to that. Man for man, I thought things would be equal talent-wise. This was just as good a job as Kirby Smart can do as a coach, and just as good a job as just recruiting and having those players that are just a little better for that day.
Right. Going forward, though, I don't know if Beck can play that poorly against, if they get into the playoffs. I mean, when they get into the playoffs, they may lose another game within the SEC before they get to the playoffs. If he's going to be throwing 3 picks like that, that puts a lot of pressure on the defense. As I mentioned, they were in control of that game, but his turnovers gave Texas hope and kept them in the game. If he doesn't turn the ball over, I'm not sure if Texas makes any kind of threat.
And that's true. And I don't think too many outside of Georgia were thinking that this was going to be a good game for Georgia. As I said on Thursday, I thought that Georgia would lose by more than 5 points. That was the line going in. I think it might have gone down. But the way they played, you can't really figure out the college football season this season. As soon as you get on the bandwagon, or not even the bandwagon, you're trying to go by your own eyeball test with a team, they disappoint you the following week. But now Georgia back at number 2, I would say deservedly so. But I don't know what to say next week because you don't know what can happen. Even while they're not playing, something else could happen. Oregon's now the number 1 team in the country. But Carson Beck, last year I was not sold on him. I was hoping he did better only because he's a Jacksonville guy and I watched him for a while and I want him to succeed like I like a lot of Jacksonville players to succeed when they go on. But he just hasn't, and they put him in this Heisman Trophy race just because he's the quarterback of Georgia, not because he's good enough to be in the Heisman race. And now we're seeing it. As he's imploding, he hasn't really done anything this season. 5 touchdowns against a nondescript team this year. And now, anytime you play a team that's either a legitimate Division I team that may pose a threat, you can't do anything. 8 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and another 3 interceptions this past game.
Yeah, so if I'm a DC playing Georgia, I stack the box. You got to stop the run.
Yep.
And force Beck to beat you. Make him prove it. I mean, he probably can. He has some talent. But
he has
just
moments.
He's not playing that well. So if you're gonna beat Georgia, you got to make Beck be the one to beat you. And last week I asked who, or did the schedule makers have something against Georgia, sending them to Tuscaloosa and to Austin? But does someone have something against Texas? Because they had to play their rival, Oklahoma, and then Georgia back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, doing the schedule, yeah, I can see how that would be an issue. But as the season unfolded, we saw how Oklahoma turned out to be not as good as expected. Or was anyone really expecting them to
I'm
be
just
good?
speaking from the
No.
emotional side
Yeah,
of it. It's
yeah,
Oklahoma.
that's
It's
probably
always a
true.
big game.
Yeah, it was, and that's what I was looking at even last week when Ohio State went all the way out there to went out there to Oregon, or if Oregon playing against Ohio State, and using all of that physical emotion and then all that emotional emotion, and then still having to go and play Purdue on the road and still doing what they did, shutting them out 35-0, the first shutout in a long time for Oregon. But now Oregon is number one, as they should be. Georgia's number two, because it was just so impressive against the number one team in the country. And going into this game, Texas was the legitimate number one. They dominated when they should have dominated, and they played very well when they should have played very well. No one really posed a threat. And at home, everything on the line, and they lost the way they did. They got drubbed. And then I don't know if you watched the game and you remember when that pass interference was called and they threw the bottles on the field. Texas now, I believe, was fined $250,000 for that. And there may be some more sanctions, I don't know, but $250,000 for that. And they changed the call in Texas. And that's why you get what you get.
Well, I saw a tweet and it said students are receiving this letter. it was stating you were viewed throwing items onto the football field. I didn't read the whole thing, but I'm like, they must have reviewed the tape and somebody recognized faces, and I think the bottom line was their tickets for the rest of the season have been revoked. They can't go to no more Texas games this year.
They'll have their picture up there. Matter of fact, people probably saw it so much in Texas, they would know who they are coming through the door. But I did see an article about that. They said that Texas is required to find out who had done it. So obviously there's surveillance out there that's going to look through the crowd and pick out people and see if you can just pick them up. With all of this technology we have right now, it may not be as hard as it was once upon a time. I remember years ago at the Meadowlands, I think it was a Giants game, and a Giants fan was throwing snowballs onto the field. I think it might have been the Cardinals. I mean, not the Cardinals, the Chargers. I don't know who it was. But he was throwing snowballs, and they got him. He got in a lot of trouble, man. But the deal is, he was on the back page of the New York Daily News, his whole picture throwing the snowball. Bro,
everybody got him.
Everybody got him. So that's what ended up happening with him. And
as far as that call, though, that was a terrible call. It needed to be changed.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was saying.
It needed to be changed. They got it right. I don't know if they would have made that call in Georgia, but you would think they would have, because it was nothing close to holding.
Nope, it wasn't.
Not even close. It was like the ref made up a call.
Man, I'm starting to wonder if he's giving 4 picks too on Thursdays. See if he's taking some money out of these games. He's betting on some of these games out here.